Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Convos with Pops. Today I have with me Mr. Dave Hancock. For those of you on Twitter, I'm sure that you know who he is. He is who I call Mr. Wrestling Travel. But Dave, why don't you tell him a little bit about yourself before we get into this?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. I'm Dave Hancock. I run wrestling travel for North America, and I also, among other things, handle social media for Starcast.
So you're the StarCast social media guy.
I am social media guy. I am.
I will definitely keep that in mind the next time that you screw with me when you're talking to me. uh,
I try to have fun with it.
oh, it's totally. I love it. So anyway, let's get into it. What is your earliest memory of wrestling?
Man, earliest memory of wrestling. I kind of got into it late. Um, I didn't have cable as a kid, and it wasn't on my local TV here in northern Indiana. I live about 90 miles outside of Chicago, but it wasn't on any of my local channels, so I really wasn't exposed to wrestling until I was in middle school. So at that time, it was the Attitude Era was heating up. So I would say my first real memory would be Goldberg and Hogan for the World Heavyweight Championship at the Georgia Dome.
That's a crazy Monday Nitro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, just to think that they. I mean, I get why, but just to give that away for free was just, I don't know, crazy to me.
It blew my mind. I mean, my neighbor, a buddy of mine, he obviously had cable, and he's like, "Hey, you want to come over and watch this? This is supposed to be nuts tonight." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll come over. I'll watch it," because everyone at school is talking about wrestling, and that just blew my mind. The theatrics, the crowd reactions. Hogan and Goldberg both, huge like brick outhouses. It was just it caught me right there. I got the bug.
Yeah, I was just talking with somebody at Starcast about that. When we were kids, the wrestlers were just massive human beings, like larger than life. Didn't make any sense how anybody could be that big. And then walking around the Starcast, it's like if you didn't know that X person was a wrestler, you'd think that they were a fan at Starcast. It blew my mind how the size difference has changed over the last 30 years.
Oh, absolutely. The business has completely changed in that aspect. I think for the better. I mean, there's always a place for the Giants. I mean, people buy tickets to the circus to see the freaks and geeks and the monsters and the animals and all that. And that's really kind of what wrestling is. But, for the overall health of everyone involved, I think, it's more of a realistic look these days versus the 6'8", 300-pound muscle machines that we were accustomed to.
Right. I think it gives hope to a regular kid growing up thinking that they want to be a wrestler, but they're like a smaller kid. So, but they can still feel like they can be a wrestler someday.
Yeah, for sure.
Who did you gravitate towards when you first started, other than like the Hogan and Goldberg?
Stone Cold had me right from the get. I mean, that was it for me. Stone Cold and Goldberg were my two guys. I'm in my mid-30s now, and they still are. But I would say, outside of those guys, I really enjoyed Edge and Christian, especially when they first started with the Brood. Again, the theatrics and the whole larger-than-life thing. Really wasn't into The Rock too much until later into his tenure. And then WCW, I loved the Luchadors. I loved the Cruiserweights. Eddie Guerrero was always a favorite. But yeah, that pretty much rounds out my faves when I first started.
So what's kept you a fan this long?
The suspension of belief or disbelief. It's theater, it's the movies, it's sport, and it's I don't know, it's a grown man soap opera. It's I mean that's what everyone says, I guess, but
Right.
it's the athleticism, and depending on what phase of the year we're in, storylines are great. Um, Maybe not so much in recent years with the WWE, but I'm really into lately NXT, and AEW is starting to get going. So I go through waves where I'm really into it, and then I go into waves where I just don't watch any of it. I just read like the dirt sheets and to keep up on stuff. But lately, I've been trying to watch what I can and stay in tune with things. But my work with Starcast and wrestling travel kind of makes my viewing time it's pretty diminished as of late, unless I'm actually attending a show.
You brought up NXT and AEW. What do you make of this Wednesday night quote unquote war? Do you think it's really going to be a war, or I mean, is AEW going to be able to pull people from the WWE crowd, in your opinion?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, NXT premieres on Wednesdays. From when we're recording this, a week from Wednesday. They're going to get a couple of weeks ahead or a jump on AEW rather. So they're trying to get that Wednesday night audience accustomed to NXT. But it will be a war in a sense. I mean, you are going to have to choose which one are you going to watch. Are you going to watch NXT and DVR AEW or vice versa? Or are you going to DVR them both or not watch either? But ultimately, it is going to be our first real test of the old Monday Night Wars. This time with the two hottest brands in wrestling going.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
Do you think NXT or I should say WWE, made a mistake having NXT premiere first? And I say that because if their product for 2 weeks is not good, and AEW, on October 2nd, I believe, comes out and they're really good, they're going to lose people.
Sure.
To AEW, right? I guess the only strategy I can see is just, like you said, trying to pull those Wednesday night viewings to them, and making almost like Monday nights. Wrestling fans know Monday nights you tune into USA.
Right.
So.
Well, that's going to be the test, isn't it? I mean, that's going to be, are they going to be able to put out a product for those first 2 weeks to hook viewers to make them want to stay around on October 2nd? If the answer is yes, then AEW will do whatever numbers AEW does. They've got a pretty solid fan base that they've become a jaded fan and they don't necessarily watch a lot of WWE anymore. If they don't do a great job these next couple weeks, then you're going to see, that audience diminish more than it would already have. So those ratings are going to be interesting on October 2nd. But what I'm really interested to see is the ratings on October 9th. Once we get past that first week, we get sort of like a baseline, what to expect. Who holds that audience? Who gains, right. Who loses?
It's interesting. I mean, we haven't, as wrestling fans, we haven't had this. I mean, TNA tried it on Monday nights, but that failed horribly, very quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of us fans, we don't really know who's running the backstage entirely for a television show for AEW. Are they going to be able to write television? Are they going to be able to put breaks in the right spot so that it's not that, you know, for channel flippers, they go to NXT and there's a high spot and they don't come back. It's going to be kind of interesting to see where they can go with this.
Yeah, the people behind the controls at NXT, you know, it's the Hunters of the world, Shawn Michaels. They're pretty used to the way things go and what's expected, and you know the WWE way of production. Whereas, you know, over at AEW, you've got a lot of backstage, behind the scenes folks from Ring of Honor and Impact, and a couple of old former WWE folks. But it's a lot of people that have never done production before, so. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how they format their television program, how they set up commercial breaks, and how they run operations as a whole.
And kind of continuing with AEW, because I've thought about this as a fan, because I know a lot of people come off and they say, like, I'm not an AEW fan, and I am. I'm just worried about them. I don't know entirely sure if I think that the weekly television program was a good idea. I think they had I think they could have kept their following just doing like a, you know, pop-up shows and quarterly pay-per-views for a while just to make sure where they're at. Because weekly television, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to maintain.
For sure. But the goal isn't to keep the following that you got, right? It's to expand your base, expand your customer base. So, I mean, God bless them for going out on a limb and the entrepreneurship and the willingness to go out and do it. I mean, it's trial by fire. You're either going to succeed or you're not. And if you don't, well, we know what the outcome's going to be, right?
And then we all go back to losing as wrestling fans again. So I don't. You know, I try to be optimistic, but I guess in my older years I've become quite pessimistic. Where do you think the business is heading? Do you think, like with AEW, do you think that's going to help save the wrestling community, or what do you think of NWA trying to come up and do some weekly television? I mean, do you think it's going to be too much, or is there such a thing as too much wrestling for wrestling fans?
I think the market will dictate what the market wants. I think anytime there's more places to work for the guys and gals in the business, that's beneficial for everybody. Competition makes everybody better. I mean, it makes storylines better. It makes paydays better. It makes opportunities better. I mean, we're already seeing that through the bidding wars of, you know, talent going to X place versus the other place. I think wrestling's never been as hot as it is now since the Attitude Era of the late 90s and maybe 2000, 2001. There's an appetite for wrestling. And if there wasn't an appetite for wrestling, we wouldn't see all these moves happening. I mean, even today, Anthem announced that they acquired Access TV, and you think, oh wow, that's cool, whatever. Except for Access is the home for U.S. distribution of New Japan Pro Wrestling and WoW Women of Wrestling. So they've already got 2 proven platforms on that channel, and now possibly Impact. So I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces in wrestling right now. I think what the NWA is doing is interesting, with Dave Lagana and kind of heading things up for Billy Corgan. But the idea of throwing it back to the days of in the 70s of the studio wrestling and doing everything in house, it's kind of like the old Impact Zone of kind of having a home for your TV, your pay-per-view, for your talent. Everything's based out of one site. But looks like they're doing it through the digital way of, you know, distributing through YouTube as opposed to traditional TV networks. So it's interesting to see what will happen with them. It's just interesting to see how this Wednesday Night War will shake out. It's interesting to see how SmackDown moving to broadcast TV will do on Fridays. It's a very interesting time in wrestling. There's a lot of unknowns, but it's an exciting time in wrestling, and thank God I'm a part of it. Starcast has taken off more than what we ever thought it would. That's Conrad's brainchild, and wrestling travel has taken off, and I'm just trying to hold the reins and go along for the ride for as long as I can.
Yeah, I saw that. I think earlier this week you posted your upcoming work schedule. That's quite the work trip, I guess you could call it, right?
Yeah, and that's just the stuff that's been announced. I mean, there's stuff that's still in the fire that hasn't been rolled out yet. But I mean, it's the next 6 months for pro wrestling are going to be absolutely insane, and it's going to be very fun if you're a fan of wrestling.
So let's, if we can, a little bit, let's talk about wrestling travel, because I don't remember ever hearing about them until I think Starcast 1 is when I first heard about wrestling travel.
Sure.
I mean, are they that new?
They are. I mean, they're a newer brand within the last few years. A lot of Americans haven't heard it because they're based in the United Kingdom. They're based out of Manchester. They were a sponsor and partner for Starcast 1. Conrad was looking for a travel partner for a contest, and Lee McAteer, who's actually the founder of Wrestling Travel, he runs Invasion Group, which is kind of like the umbrella company that Wrestling Travel operates under. He's a big wrestling fan and said, "Hey, I've got this brand, and this is our bread and butter, and we think we can help." And so basically, Wrestling Travel just connects people to the most in-demand and high-profile wrestling events in the world. Connects them with complete, ticket and hotel packages and flights and special experiences like private parties with talent, meet and greets, you name it. And try to really give you an experience as a one-stop shop, and hopefully save you some money in the long run versus you going out and doing it yourself. And you also do it with like-minded people. So it's more than just a trip, and it's more than just a vacation. We try to give people an experience, and that's the ultimate goal.
I was just kind of perusing the prices of some of the trips that are scheduled, and I was like, dang, I really wish that these guys were around for WrestleMania 23 when I booked through WWE, because it's like a fraction of the cost to go to WrestleMania in Tampa. To be honest with you, I think it's a fraction of the cost through you to go to Wrestle Kingdom 2020 than it cost me to go to Mania 23 in Detroit.
Yeah,
and I live in Wisconsin.
Wow. Yeah. Funny you say that. WrestleMania 23 was my first Mania. But yeah,
my first and only.
The Wrestle Kingdom package has been really popular for us, and I think as of today we only have 3 spots left in that package. But we're all fans, everyone that's involved in it, and yeah, it's a business, and yeah, we're all looking to get paid out of it, but it's more than that. We're not trying to rob people. We're not price gouging. We want to make sure people can go and have it affordable so that they can experience these things in their lives. So you might experience some sticker shock looking at like the Wrestle Kingdom package, but once you factor in your round trip flight and 5 days of a hotel and both days of Wrestle Kingdom and guided tours with Fat Ass Masa from Being the Elite and a bunch of other stuff, I mean, it really is affordable. And on top of that, we do interest-free payment plans, which a lot of people aren't aware of. That way, it's for the fans by the fans. It's if I wanted to do something like this, how could I do it? And then we put that into action. So if you want to go to a WrestleMania next year, but you don't know how you can make that happen, let us help you out. Put down a deposit. We set up an account for you, and you can pay into that account and get it paid off over time. And sure enough, you're on a once in a lifetime trip to WrestleMania that you never thought you'd be able to make. We're out trying to help people have the experience that they never thought they could have.
Which is wonderful, and like you said, it's affordable, and maybe for the person that's never done a Mania that looks at it and it's like, wow, that's a lot of money, but you got to look at everything that's included You can't book things by yourself and get it for anywhere close to what you guys are offering. So
Yeah, we try to be as inclusive as we can, like with our WrestleMania package. I mean, you're getting your hotel is taken care of, your tickets to WrestleMania is taken care of, and depending on the package, we can also put you in a box suite for Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. And who knows, might be giving a little news that'll get me in trouble with the boss, but you might have a Hall of Famer in your box suite with you, or another famous wrestling talent. We These little surprises, these add-ons that we throw in that you don't expect, so you come away thinking, wow, I had the time of my life. I want to go to a wrestling travel trip again, and that's the ultimate goal.
Well, you definitely have a fan in me, and I will, as soon as my wife lets me open up my checkbook for a vacation, I'll definitely be doing that. Yeah, and anything that I can do or we can do here with Wrestling Travel at the DYWTSB family will do for you.
Well, sincerely appreciate that. We're part of the community too. I came on board because I'm part of the community. I'm the fan that wants to do stuff like that. So I come away thinking, well, what do I want to do, and how can I put that into motion to make it happen for people? It might seem overwhelming if you want to do like a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam trip, and it seems like a pipe dream. That's something you're never going to be able to do. We take that away from you. We take care of everything. That way you can just enjoy the trip, not have to worry about the stress, and let someone else worry about all the details.
Well, now that really long commercial for Wrestling Travel is over by the both of us. So, really, I don't want to keep kicking around AEW, but I'm fascinated, and I know, like, I was back at the hotel during StarCast for the viewing party, which I thought was a great idea. You're around fans that are like, hey, we really wanted to go, but we couldn't afford it, so we're all going to spend time here as a community, and it's just a great idea all around. What did you think overall of All Out?
I thought All Out, top to bottom, was a really fun show. Being there in the arena, the atmosphere really added to it. The Chicago crowd is the best crowd I've ever been in. I've been to shows in New York and Tokyo, and I've been to Royal Rumbles, and but there's nothing like a Chicago crowd. Even though technically it was in Hoffman Estates and we're in the suburbs. But
right.
I thought it was a really enjoyable show. The ladder match, the Escalera de la Muerta with the Bucks and the Lucha Bros, was really fun. I thought the Kenny and Pac match, I'm not sure it clicked on all cylinders, but it was an enjoyable match. I think it's getting there. I mean, it's certainly better than any WWE pay-per-view I've watched recently. I'll say that. I'm not saying NXT, but certainly better than any WWE event that has happened as of late.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I was surprised by the length of it. I wasn't ready for 5 hours, I guess, including pre-show, but it didn't feel like 5 hours.
My goodness, I didn't even realize that it was 5 hours, huh?
Right. And then, like, producer of this show and co-host of our main show, Queen, was actually in attendance. She said, like, it was long, but it didn't feel like it. It was, everything just kept going and going and going. Speaking of Queen, she's going to be mad and she'll probably edit this out, but as a wrestling fan, let's talk about Kenny Omega.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about Kenny Omega. I've been learning about him over the last year or so. While we were after the viewing party was over and we were waiting for them to set up for Janelle Palooza, I was outside and I was talking to a friend of mine, Steve Tatai, And he brought up a very interesting thing that he would have not had Kenny get beat this year. Internet wrestling fans know him. New Japan wrestling fans know him as, the Picasso of wrestling. He's the best bout machine, and he's a damn good wrestler. But when you're introducing him to an American crowd and trying to pull people in that don't know him, I think I have to agree. I think I would have let him go unbeaten this year.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. He's obviously very well known internationally. He's a internet darling. Like you said, the average WWE viewer, the average American viewer, probably doesn't know a heck of a lot about Kenny Omega. But I think they're trying to utilize his talent to build on AEW's athleticism. And I know one of the main focuses that Tony Khan has spoken about is wanting to present AEW's product more as like an athletic venture, more like a sport. And when you have a once in a lifetime athlete like Kenny Omega, you're absolutely able to do that. He's an exceptional talent. But the booking of Kenny Omega, the character, has been interesting with AEW. I'll say that. It'll be interesting to see where things go with his match with Jon Moxley, since that's been delayed. Hopefully we see that at Full Gear. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic trying to introduce this amazing athlete to an American audience that has a lot of backstory, but having him take pins and lose these matches consecutively. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
I don't normally take issue with people taking a loss because it's wrestling. in the long scheme of it, really doesn't matter. But AEW wins and losses matter. And
Right.
then you take a look at his current record in AEW is 1-2.
Yep.
He beat Shima, but he lost to Jericho. Okay, Jericho went on to be the new, the first champion. Okay, but then he loses to Pac, and we can all assume that had Moxley been there, he would have taken the loss to Moxley.
Maybe
That's an
not.
assumption, maybe not. But now he's beaten a guy from a company in Japan, and in the States he's lost to two former WWE guys. So cynics like myself, who don't understand, maybe not like myself, but cynics who don't understand booking entirely are going to say, well, he can't beat a WWE guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just...
But now you have to look at it like, are they doing it to entice you for a further story in the future? Is it going to be, here's this guy who's a world-class talent, the supposed internet darling, the best bout machine, the 5-star magician, and now look at him. He's down and out. Prove something to us. And does he become then sort of this talent that has something to prove? Almost like an underdog story, but is it something you get a vested interest in? That you're like, well, obviously he's going to lose this, and it's another WWE guy. Chalk up another L for Kenny Omega. And then maybe 6 months from now he pulls out a win, and you're like, holy crap. Where was that Kenny Omega 6 months ago? You know what I mean? So I think they have some better long-term plans that we're not aware of. At least I would hope so. But time will tell.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing, Kenny Omega chase, but
yeah,
we got to get him to a point where he's believable to the crowd as a chase.
Sure.
What's your take on Darby Allin?
I wasn't really that familiar with Darby Allin too much before this AEW run. I mean, I with my interactions online, Twitter, etc., I knew of him. I didn't see a lot of his work. He has an interesting I don't know if you want to say character but it's an interesting backstory. Um, who is this guy? He's kind of like a Two-Face from Batman, Joker kind of deal. He's part good, part evil, part sinister, part dark. You know, what do you expect out of him? You don't know. Um, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. I think his match with Cody had a lot of promise. I wish that more came out of that. I mean, I understood that they needed to build a program with Shawn Spears for Cody, but it feels like Darby kind of got lost in the wind there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully there's something that comes of that in the future. But he interests me. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that he has the potential to be a megastar if booked right.
For sure, the charisma is obviously there.
Yeah, I mean, and the appeal, because like you said, you don't know. I mean, because he can come out and have a 5-star death match, but he could come out and wrestle you too. It's
he obviously has some technical ability. I mean, he's got a hardcore side to him, so it's sort of like a mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get match to match, or so it appeared.
What do you think that NXT needs to do to, I guess, kind of extinguish a little bit of their fan base wanting to go to AEW? I mean, to me, NXT isn't the problem in the company. You know what I mean? Like, they're the answer to how to keep things afloat.
Yeah, I think NXT, the most beneficial thing for NXT would be to be left alone, to be not rated by the main roster. I mean, obviously it's used as a feeder program, or a feeder brand, but to be left alone as its own standalone touring product. I know that's kind of what Hunter wants with it, but to make it its own animal. I mean, let WWE be WWE with Raw and SmackDown, and let NXT be NXT. If you've ever attended an NXT live event, it's a totally different crowd than if you go to a WWE live event. It just is. It's an older, more mature crowd. Kind of gives you that kind of ECW feel a little bit to it, at least at the takeovers, which is cool. And the talent definitely feeds into that, and that's why I think the takeover events are consecutively and consistently the top events of any major weekend that they have for the company, whether it's WrestleMania weekend or SummerSlam weekend. You always come out of takeover thinking, wow, how are they going to follow that? So I get fans thinking, well, there's certain talent here that are kind of spinning their wheels. They deserve to be on a better, bigger platform. They let them go to AEW or send them up to the main roster or whatever. But I think in due time, especially now that they're going to be live on USA Network and they'll get out of Full Sail and they'll tour, it'll be interesting to see how NXT evolves and manifests itself in especially the next year. Is it going to be a AEW sized brand that will compete, or will it stay the minor league for WWE?
Do you think there's a possibility that it could do both?
I think it is. Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, it's a WWE brand, right? And there's one man at the top of that totem pole, and that's Vince McMahon. If he sees someone down in NXT that he wants, they'll be on the main roster next week. It's all to his whim. And I think we are going to see both. We are going to see NXT be a popular brand, standalone brand, fully touring, and then you're going to see people pop up on the main roster. I totally think that's going to happen. But I also think we're going to see people from the main roster show up at NXT when it's now live on Wednesdays, because they're going to be trying to take the AEW audience, and in order to do that, you have to have surprises and keep people guessing. Just like You know, the Attitude Era. You never knew what was going to happen.
Right.
It's a car crash. You got to tune in to see what's going to happen next.
I don't think that the quote unquote main roster has the writers for that. I mean, they
No.
haven't been able to keep anybody's interest, and that's why AEW is gaining in popularity with, 4 shows or 5 shows under its belt.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of jaded fans, and that writing is on the wall, and that's why WWE's kind of trying to kickstart some things. They're changing the creative teams. They're putting Paul Heyman in charge of Raw and Eric Bischoff in charge of SmackDown, and they're trying to change things up because they know competition is right around the corner. People might say AEW isn't competition to WWE. I'm here to tell you that's absolutely incorrect. They are viewed by WWE internally as competition. Every bit of competition as anything else, but they are keeping a close eye on AEW and their moves. I'll say that.
Well, and I agree that they're competition. I think that where the internet talk gets a little crazy is when people are like, "Oh, AEW is going to put WWE out of business." That's just not going to happen. Like that's just fool speak to even think that that's going to happen. Are they going to take business? Sure, but if Vince has proven anything, he doesn't like to lose.
It's true. I mean, he is the evil genius. But are they going to put WWE out of business? No, not at all. But AEW will be around as long as they want to, because a quick Google search will show you there's a lot more funds available, I should say, to AEW than there are funds available to WWE, just based on net worths and etc. It's all about how much money people want to put into the product at the end of the day. Is it going to be profitable or not? Is it going to be worth a while or not? But no, there's room in the marketplace for both. There's room in the marketplace for more than just those two companies. And that's why it's such an exciting time to be a wrestling fan.
I don't remember ever there being a time like this, even during the Attitude Era when the Monday Night Wars. It wasn't like this. Maybe that's because we didn't have the social media presence that we have now.
Yeah.
And it was just basically talking to your buddies about what was going on, and now you can talk to millions of your closest friends on a daily basis.
For sure. But I mean, you think back to the Attitude Era, you had the WWF, WCW, and ECW, right? I mean,
right.
NWA wasn't a thing. It was in the 80s, Jim Crocker Promotions and all that, but it wasn't a thing in the 90s. But now you've got WWE, you have NXT, and I will separate the two. You have AEW, MLW, which is doing fantastic things. Court Bauer is rocking it with MLW now. You have Impact, you have Ring of Honor, AAA. I mean, you've got these larger promotions that are on the cusp, but then underneath those, you've got Evolve, and you've got Progress, you've got Warrior Wrestling, you've got Northeast Wrestling, you've got these big independent promotions even. So the wrestling industry is thriving. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
It's almost like it's cool again to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is nice, because guys like me who are wrestling nerds, and wrestling 7 days a week for me, but
yeah,
kind of had to be a little closet there for a while. You don't want to get picked on, but
it was a scarlet letter.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned ROH.
Yeah.
Are they really doing as poorly as people like to think they are?
I mean, that's all perspective, I guess. I mean, I don't know their inner workings. I mean, but you can see social media posts and see that houses aren't drawing well. I was at Summer Supercard in Toronto, and the building was really light. But I don't even necessarily think that's due to, the guys from Being the Elite being gone. I think it has to do with the booking and storylines, and they're not being a lot of buzz around Ring of Honor, which is unfortunate. I got friends that work there. I got friends that work behind the scenes, and I got friends that are talent there. And I want them to succeed. I want them to be great at what they do. But Ring of Honor seems to have been treading water for a while. I was at Death Before Dishonor in Las Vegas last September, and they had all of Being the Elite there. I mean, Cody, Hangman, the Bucks, Marty, Flip. I mean, Kenny wasn't there, but they also had Okada on the card. I mean, this thing was stacked, and they couldn't even fill the floor seats for that show, and it was it's been an eye opener to see what's going on with Ring of Honor, what can be changed. I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but I hope for my friends that are there that things change soon, because they deserve to have more eyes on them. They have great in-ring product. The guys and gals that work at Ring of Honor are fantastic. They're world class. The athletes, the wrestlers. I don't know, man. I wish better for them, and I hope things turn around because they deserve it.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Ring of Honor, and you know they had a pretty good skit a few years ago, and they were able to pull out of it. I just feel like somehow their talent roster was able to be rated, and it seems almost all at once, that's going to hurt anybody. But yeah, I mean, I hope something comes that they can pull it up and get that ship steered right, because
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say. I mean, yeah, they did lose a lot of talent, to AEW and some going to WWE, but you can only use that as your reasoning for so long. I mean, those guys left in December. Their last dates were for Wrestle Kingdom in January. That was January 4th. We're now at September 9th. We're more than 9 months since. 9 months is a heck of a lot of time to build characters and build compelling talent that people want to see. I mean, WWE doesn't get into their WrestleMania storylines sometimes until well after the Royal Rumble. And sometimes it's brand new people. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's WWE, but I mean, it's been 9 months since those guys departed, and those first couple months I get it, but especially since Supercard of Honor in April, there's really, that excuse has gone by the wayside. You got to do something. You got to put the pedal to the floor and change things.
Do you think they can do that with just, better booking, better writing, or do you think they need to go out and just get that, 1 or 2 stars that can right the ship?
Oh, I don't think any one thing is going to change it. It's not like hiring one huge name talent is going to fix things for them. I think it's a mixed bag, and I think it's going to take several things. But, it's hard to say. The booking doesn't make a lot of sense a lot of the time. The way talent are used doesn't make a lot of sense a lot of the time. But they hire some great guys like Roosh. He was a really sought-after talent, and they nailed him down, and they're starting to build something with him. We'll see where that goes. But there's a variety of things that need to happen with Ring of Honor, in my opinion. But I think that the potential is there. I think they can turn it around. I think it's going to take some focus and a plan, and we'll see how it goes.
Do you see wrestling booming, 5-10 years down the road? We're part of a community that has of a business that has so many ups and downs, and right now I just can't see it taking a downward shift anytime soon, and it's been a long time since I could say that. So I'm trying to get everybody's opinion on, where do you think the business will be in 5-10 years? Like, where would you like to see it in 5-10 years?
I mean, it's on an upswing now. Time will tell. I mean, I think we'll really know in the next 5 years whether AEW works as an experiment or not. Um, if AEW can make it through these first 5 years, uh, it'll have some staying power. I think it'll really change the business and who we see where, and the different things we see on TV, and even how we view it. Whether it's mobile or whatever comes down the line. But wrestling, man, it comes in waves. Like in the late '80s, Hulkamania was running wild. Wrestling was hot. And you got into the early and mid '90s, and wrestling was crap. I mean,
Yeah.
it was folky and gimmicky, and it wasn't cool to be a wrestling fan. And then late '90s hit, it's awesome again. You get into the 2000s and the 2010s, and it's kind of treading water. It is what it is. It just seems like it's on this every 10 to 15 year wave of whether it's going to be hot or not. And we're on this hot swing right now. And, we'll see where things end up in the next 5-10 years. But I'm hoping this has some staying power.
All right, one last question for you, sir.
Yeah.
It's really the meat of what this show is all about.
Oh.
What has wrestling meant to you on a personal level?
Wow.
Since the beginning.
Wrestling's changed my life, man. I mean, it's brought me my closest friends in the world. I mean, there's a very small core group of us that started getting together at the NWA Legends Fan Fest in Charlotte, North Carolina. That became really good buddies. We ended up we're belt collectors, or we're in the hobby, and we all became the best of friends. And those guys are my brothers. And I mean, that's led to doing some work for Conrad that led to doing Starcast, and I was helping with social media for his podcasts, and I've been able to travel, and now that's led into working for Wrestling Travel or running things here in North America. And I'm just a kid from the cornfields of Indiana that really didn't do a whole lot. I'm a former firefighter and police officer, but I never thought I'd travel really out of the Midwest. And now I'm planning a trip to the UK. I've been to Japan. I've been all over the country to see wrestling. It's really changed my life from a personal and professional standpoint. And now I'm able to provide for my family based on wrestling. And it means the world to me. And more than that, I now have 2 boys that we're foster parents, and our boys are 3 years old, and the youngest will turn 2 on October 11th, and we're actually adopting them. And it's really cool to be able to sit down with my boys and watch wrestling with them and share something that I enjoy, watch them get enjoyment out of it, and know that that's something that we can share and bond over for years to come. And that's really special to me. And I'll be able to take them on trips with me, and Mom will be able to come with us. And yeah, that's everything to me.
Well, on a non-wrestling note, from one Midwest guy to another, I appreciate the being fosters and adopting. My daughter is also adopted. We got lucky, and we were able to bring her home from the hospital. But yeah, that's something I think even more special than a lot of the things I've done in my life, which I definitely would tell everybody, if you have the means to or the heart to, definitely look into fostering and adopting, because it's wonderful.
Yeah, there's a significant need out there. There's an extreme shortage of foster homes, especially quality foster homes, and kids just need someone to care for them. And I never thought that I would be capable of ever, being a parent. But I can tell you that outside of marrying the trophy wife, who I have no business being married to, she's way above my league. But outside of being married, being a dad has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. And if you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be, anything special. You just got to be willing to open your home to a kid in need. So if you can do that, give it a thought, because you'll find that you end up getting more out of it than those kids do.
I think we can stop the tapes, as your friend Conrad would say. I don't think we're going to beat that. So let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. I'm on everywhere on social media, but I like to keep to Twitter. I am D for David, D Hancock 110 on Twitter. Shoot us a follow at Wrestling Travel, and also give us a follow at Starcast Events. We've got Starcast 4 coming up in Baltimore for Full Gear, AEW Full Gear weekend. That's November 7th through the 10th. We've got some fun stuff that's going to be announced soon. And Wrestling Travel's got some awesome packages for WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Wrestle Kingdom, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, you name it. We've got your hookup. If you have any questions, my DMs are open.
Well, I thank you, sir. And really quick, I just want to let everyone know, if you don't have enough wrestling on your TV, why don't you head over to powerslam.tv, punch in that code DYWTSB for a free month, and you get yourself over 5,000 hours of independent wrestling, as well as maybe you find some of your favorite podcasts on that site as well. That's it for me. I'll see y'all in a couple of weeks.